Well, it looks like we are experiencing our first mechanical failure with our long-term 2021 Ford Bronco. We purchased this vehicle at the end of July of this year, so about 5 months ago. We have since put on 4,492 miles, and it looks like it's developed a pretty serious oil leak. We're going to try to diagnose that in today's video. If you've been following our Bronco series, you know that our first issue was related to the hardtop that came equipped on this vehicle. It rattled, it popped, it squeaked, and then it turned out to be a pretty known issue within the Bronco world. While we replaced the hardtop with a soft top, we're still awaiting our replacement hardtop, by the way. Hopefully that'll be coming soon. However, the top issue is not a safety item per se. It's not going to affect the vehicle's ride handling or safety dynamics. However, this new issue could. About a week ago, I was repositioning some vehicles in our studio here and noticed a fairly sizable oil leak here on the floor. It was about, 10 inches long, maybe 4 inches wide. Now, I did chalk it up to one of our older vehicles because we have a number of them, including classic British cars. However, this was very, very clean oil, so I don't believe it was from a British car. And then, yesterday we were doing our live show, we moved the Bronco again, and I noticed an even larger puddle here after it had been sitting for a number of days. So I do believe that the Ford is the one causing the issue. I think it's time to dive underneath and see if we can figure out what is going on. Okay, so do excuse the goofy eyewear. I just got eye surgery and can't get anything in my eyes like dirt or the like, but got a GoPro here and let's get to diagnosing. So it was clearly an oily substance and a very clear oily substance. So let's start. I think the front's a good place to start. Any visible stains or anything on the front skid plates? No, those all look pretty good. Now I'm looking up kind of by the front differential here. Poking my head around, seeing if there is anything obvious causing our leak. Here we've got a little inspection port for the front diff. That looks completely dry. All right, so as we make our way underneath the middle of the vehicle, from the engine side of things, the pans are looking super dry. Not seeing any moisture buildup underneath the skid plate. It's all looking good. The transfer case, very dry actually. Looks brand new, as you'd expect out of a vehicle with 4,000 miles. Yep, all looks good, I'll take that. I don't think it's fuel because it's definitely an oily substance, but fuel tank looks good. And then what about the rear diff? All right, well, rear diff looks perfect too. See nothing going on back there. Okay, so both the front and the rear diff are dry. Transfer case is dry. Transmission looks good. And I don't think it was ATF on the ground. So that leaves the engine. Engine looks perfect. So what else could have oil in it? Oh, you know what? Let's check the shocks. That's a good idea. Okay, rear end. Trailing arm. There's the rear suspension. On the driver's side, looks perfect. Slide underneath, check out the passenger side. One pro of the Bronco is it's so tall with the Sasquatch package, you can do this. Yep. Rear assembly looks good as well. Yeah, that is all perfectly dry. Front right. There you can see the, what really is like a coilover. That all looks good. Okay, only got one more corner. Front driver. Let's see if we can see any moisture here. Oh. That is not looking promising, actually. I think we found our culprit. Lots and lots of oily residue there on the shock itself. I think we need to remove the wheel and get a closer look. Mic test, microphone test. All right. So I've chalked the rear wheels, undo these lugs, and then we can jack the vehicle up. The jacking point is clearly marked on the frame via this small little arrow there. That's a nice touch. Going to use our 3-ton floor jack for this. With the Ford up on jack stands, we can clearly see what is going on with the suspension. So here we have the front left A-arm, of course the second one down there, and this is the coilover. It's a Bilstein unit, and you can see, or at least I hope you can see in camera, that it is just soaked in oil on the lower portion here. Try to get a sense of that on camera. So I think that is where the leak is coming from. Now, if we look a little bit more closely, the top portion of the coilover appears to be completely dry. And then as we make our way down to the bottom portion, you can see where it has been leaking. So, this is a pretty big deal. Of course, suspension is, of course, a safety item. I am curious to see, now that it's been sitting for a few days, if there's a change in the ride and handling. So I say we bolt it back up together and see if there's a noticeable difference. So here's a little tip I've learned when dealing with wheels and tires that are this large. This is, of course, the Sasquatch package on this Bronco, so a 35-inch tall tire. But even someone like me who has zero strength of any kind in any portion of my body can still mount these wheels and tires on quite easily. I find it helpful to kind of get your legs underneath the tire, and then you can use your calves to kind of position it into place with a lot of kind of accuracy and delicacy, which is pretty cool. So even if you don't have a lot of strength, you can still quite easily mount these larger tires. And then of course it's helpful to be just a little bit off the ground. All right, let's get these back up to their torque specs. Well, it appears that we have a leaky front left shock absorber on our new Ford Bronco. Now, is this something that will leave you stranded on the side of the trail or prevent you from driving home from work? It is not. However, it is a safety item that does need to be addressed, something that needs to be fixed, because as more and more fluid leaks out of that shock absorber, the damping capability is going to be severely reduced. And of course, that is the main purpose of a shock absorber, is to reduce the oscillation effect that you'd find in a spring. And then of course you want both the left and the front right shocks operating at their maximum capacity. Now, on the road, it doesn't feel all that different. It feels okay. However, the longer we wait to get this fixed, potentially the more fluid will leak out of it. And then I'd hate to be driving down like I-70 at 70 miles an hour and hit some of those nasty expansion joints and have that left front end go all wobbly on me. So I think it's something we're going to get addressed immediately because it needs to be fixed. Now, how does something like this happen? Well, a lot of the times a failed shock, if that is indeed what happened here, will occur as a vehicle ages. So as it gets older and older, of course, the seals within the shock itself will start to go bad, and then they might leak, and then over time the fluid will leak out of it, and then you need to replace your shocks. However, I mean, this is a vehicle with 4,492 miles. It shouldn't have happened that quickly. Now, the other possibility is, for example, like a big impact with an object at speed could put a lot of load on that shock and cause the seals to fail prematurely. Now, we have taken this vehicle off-road a number of times. However, in my opinion, nothing that we have done off-road should have caused this to happen. I have done all the major hard off-road expeditions with this vehicle, and I'm a very cautious off-road driver. And it's also worth noting all the off-roading we've done with this vehicle have been very slow speed, so rock crawling. The only time I personally have seen a shock fail off-road in the 8 years I've been doing it is with big impacts at speed. So for example, someone taking a jump or hitting a rock at 15, 20, 25, 30 miles an hour wrong, that can cause a shock to fail. But that hasn't happened in this vehicle, as far as I know, and I have put the vast majority of the miles on this, especially off-road. And honestly, all the off-road trails, even the difficult ones I've put this vehicle through, this thing has done an absolute ace job at conquering. It really hasn't struggled in a big way at all on any of the trips I've taken out into the dirt in this. And let's also be honest, this vehicle is an off-road machine. It was designed to hit the trails. It's got front and rear locking diffs, a sway bar disconnect, 35-inch tall tires. This vehicle was designed to be used in the dirt. The other potential terrain that can cause a shock to fail is like washboard. So tons and tons and tons of washboard can cause a shock to fail prematurely. Once again, not something that this vehicle has done a lot of, because it's of course only 5 months old. And we honestly just don't have that much washboard out here where we live in Colorado. So we're gonna get this to the dealership, see what's going on, and I'm hoping that we can get that replaced and fixed soon, quickly, and under warranty, because in my opinion, that seems like a premature failure that should not have occurred. And I'd be very disappointed if we had to pay for that out of pocket. And hopefully we can get the part with this being such a new vehicle and still seeing wait times on delivering new ones. Hopefully replacement parts are not going to be too crazy to get. Well guys, I'll keep you updated as always. This has been Tommy with TFLcar.com and TFLtruck.com. Head over to TFL-studios.com for all the latest and greatest in our podcasts, our websites, our videos. You can all find them in one convenient spot.